Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phillies have a potential major postseason weakness, and not a lot of people are talking about it. I'll tell you what it is and why they need to watch it if they're going to blast a long time in October.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Phillies, your home for daily Philadelphia Phillies coverage and information and everything. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. The Phillies have a major postseason weakness. Now, will it kill them? Not necessarily, because every team has a major postseason weakness. That's how you can talk yourself into any of these teams, National League, American League, getting potentially knocked out. But I'm going to tell you what it is and why, well, it could be a big-time issue in every series they play, but especially if they match up with the Dodgers in the NLDS. We're also going to talk about, speaking of the Dodgers, Reds-Dodgers game 1 late last night. The Dodgers take a 1-0 lead in that series. If they win tonight, it's Phil's Dodgers. We need the Reds to extend, but can they? And what did we learn about potentially facing the Dodgers from game 1? And we'll also talk about the intrasquad scrimmage that the Phillies have going on tonight. Open at the bank. Fans will be there. It's a really cool event. Just some general thoughts ahead of that for you to know before, and not so much before the scrimmage, before we react to the scrimmage. Yes. So we will talk about all of that. But what is this giant glaring weakness for the Philadelphia Phillies that I could be so worried about? I'm Mr. Positive, right? You rarely hear me talk this way. But I like doing this every once in a while, especially when we have a lot of time on our hands, because we've been kind of just sitting around since Sunday, right? And now it's Wednesday, and we still don't know our opponent, and we still don't know what time the game is on Saturday. So it's good to look at things not just from the why the Phillies can win perspective, but why can the Phillies lose? There's one thing that really stands out to me over everything else. Now, there was an article written recently, and it was in The Athletic, I believe, and I forget the actual author of the article, so I apologize, but it was basically breaking down like every team's best and worst stat as you head into October of the playoff teams. Of course, we're not doing it for the Colorado Rockies. Their best stat is nothing, and their worst stat is everything. All due respect, but the point is, every Major League Baseball team in the postseason this year has something they do great and something they do not so great. And the Phillies, they kind of took a reach, right? Their number one weakness, according to stats, was batting average on balls in play for right-handed batters. And that feels like, okay, that's a weird stat, because it's just like, the expected fielding of balls hit in play by right-handed hitters. It's one of those like really nuanced stats that doesn't seem to mean all of that much. And I thought about it. I said, there's a better way to explain that. And maybe in the article, not enough time, because he was breaking down like every single team and multiple stats for both teams. So let me talk to you about why that actually is a big weakness. The Phillies have a lot of things that they do well. They can hit the ball out of the yard. The power has really shown up lately. They can hit the ball for average. Guys like Harrison Bader and Trey Turner and Brandon Marsh have seen to that. They can field the baseball. They have some really good outfield fielding and infield fielding. This year, there have been points where you've questioned that. But where they stand right now, they're a solid fielding baseball team. You might say, Connor, their base running stinks. Is that their biggest weakness? No, it's funny. Their base running hasn't been great, but it's not glaringly bad when you look at the numbers compared to any of their real peers here in the postseason. And at the end of the day, I don't really think base running in October is what kills you or saves you. Like hitting the ball does, getting outs does. Like base running is a footnote that just becomes very annoying over 162 games when they don't fix it. And God knows the Phillies haven't fixed it. But that's not their weakness either. Pitching wise, you could say, oh, it's the bullpen. But I'd point you to Jhoan Duran and say, okay, that guy's pretty much unhittable when he's on. And you got other guys that have been big time in postseasons before, Matt Strom and David Robertson and Tanner Banks and guys like that. So I wouldn't call that like this glaring weakness, and the starting rotation obviously is not. And if you question depth, well, let's say you're throwing Ranger, Sanchez, Luzardo in the divisional series. Well, you also then have Nola who could start, Buehler who could start, Walker who could start. So you got depth there. So what seems to be the issue? The Phillies, if they have a major weakness, it is getting out right-handed batters, which is what that stat basically tells you, the batting average on balls in play for right-handed hitters. Now, I think that's kind of a roundabout way of looking at it. What's easier is just look at the pitchers that the Philadelphia Phillies have. Who are the best pitchers on the Phillies roster? Let's start with the rotation. Christopher Sanchez is obviously their ace. Ranger Suarez is probably their 2. And if it's not him, it's Jesus Luzardo. Lefty, lefty, lefty. There's a reason why Aaron Nola, Taijuan Walker, and Walker Buehler, righty, 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 are not in the plans to necessarily throw in the NLDS. Now, will they be on the playoff roster? That's something we're going to talk about on tomorrow's episode where we get into some playoff roster talk. But it's clear that they have better left-handed starting pitching than they do right-handed starting pitching, to the point where they've completely split up their rotation by handedness as far as who's going to start lefty, who's not going to start righty. But it goes further than that. Let's go to the bullpen. All right. Jhoan Duran, righty. So that's fine, right? You're totally comfortable with him going out there as a right-handed pitcher and getting right-handed batters out. He can also get left-handed batters out. He's kind of like one of these guys bro, you could, I don't know, bat upside down, left, right, doesn't matter. He's going to get you out. But outside of him, let's look at it. Lefty reliever, Matt Strom, been pretty darn good this year. Tanner Banks, been pretty darn good this year. Righty relievers, David Robertson, struggles when he throws back-to-back outings. Ryan Kerkering struggles when there's runners on base, or pretty much every other situation lately. And you look at it and who's throwing out of the pen, and you say, wow, I have a lot more faith in the – and again, this is outside of Duran because I know we all have faith in him. But I have a lot more faith in the lefty relievers than I do the righty relievers. Your right-handed arms are Duran, who is kind of just the exists in both worlds guy, Kerkering, Robertson, Nola, Taijuan Walker, Walker Buehler. Do you feel good about that? That is where, if the Phillies start to run into trouble, where you say, okay, we have not been getting right-handed batters out, that is where the weakness crawls in, right, for the Philadelphia Phillies, is that they may just not have enough to consistently, especially in high-leverage spots late in the game, get righties out. And let's just look ahead to this potential Dodgers series. I know the Dodgers have not won the wild card series yet, but let's just look at their lineup from last night, because they went out and they put up 10 runs against the Cincinnati Reds in a Game 1 victory in one of the NL wild card series. I just want to look at the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup from last night. So you've got Shohei Ohtani leading off, who obviously is lefty at the plate, throws righty, but a lefty. Then you have Mookie Betts, righty. You have Freddie Freeman, lefty. So a little bit of a balance there at the top of the lineup. Max Muncy, lefty. And here's where then they start to go a little bit righty-heavy. Teoscar Hernandez. Tommy Edman is a switch hitter, so he will bat from the right side against pretty much all of the Phillies starting pitchers. Andy Pages, righty. Kike Hernandez, righty. Go all the way down to Rortvet, their catcher, last night. Lefty. So it's weird to find a lefty hitting catcher. It's funny, the Phils actually have one of those guys in Garrett Stubbs. Two of those guys, Marshall. But yeah, it's just you see the middle of the lineup when you get there. And those are some good time hitters. And you throw Mookie Betts in there as well. I'd rather have lefties to face Ohtani, to face Freeman, to face Muncy. But Betts, Hernandez, Edman, Pages, Kike Hernandez. Not exactly the easiest lineup of righties to go through. And that's something that the Phillies are going to have to contend with. So when you face teams that have those solid right-handed bats that do hit left-handed pitching well, they're going to be a tough matchup for the Philadelphia Phillies. Will that be enough to sink them? Well, there's one thing real quick that like the Phillies can do that two of their three starters do really, really well that can counter that. I will defend this forever. I think the toughest pitch for a righty to hit off the lefty is a backup changeup. I do. Something breaking in on you when you're not expecting it to be breaking in on you. Breaking away from you. Distance is maxed up. But anything that you could throw like that kind of gets them diving out over the plate, the changes rather than just kind of waiting the ball to come in on you so you don't have to like reach out and go get it. That's where you can really start to mess with righties. And Sanchez throws the best changeup in baseball, and Ranger throws a really good changeup. And Luzardo's not bad with that as well. He's more of a power pitcher. But the Phillies can get righties out. It's just when we look back at the postseason, if it doesn't end the way that they want it to, I'd be very intrigued to see what the batting average of right-handed hitters is against the Philadelphia Phillies this year. Speaking of those Dodgers, we learned a little bit from Reds-Dodgers game one, and we had some people overreact from what I was seeing today on social media and everything from the game. So what's the proper reaction to the Dodgers winning 10-5 over the Reds in game one? And how worried should the Phillies be about the Dodgers? There's a lot of stuff to get into with this and how it applies to the Phillies. So we'll talk about that next as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about game time first, though, because there's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it, especially when it's a playoff game. Red October's here. The Phils are playing a home playoff game Saturday. And if you need tickets, you need to use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you're going to pay. The app makes it super simple. You can even see the exact view from your seat before buying. Now, it will not show you the Red October crowd, so just know that whatever seats that you get inside Citizens Bank Park going forward are going to be louder than they might look. But no, you'll get the view from your seat, and they've got zone deals too, which can be a lifesaver in the postseason where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, and download Game Time ahead of Red October, which means download it today. Let's also talk about Monarch Money because you got to make sure your finances are in a row. That's very important. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch's for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, I should say. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You just link it all together. There's all of these cool features that show you insights onto where your money's going and how it's going there. It also puts all of this in one place, so you're not just like adding up the numbers yourself. It's the modern solution to a busy life and busy money. And that's what Monarch Money's there for. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. So the Reds fell to the Dodgers 10-5 last night. Now, if you didn't stay up for the game, you're not alone. I didn't watch every second of it because that was clearly going to be a blowout pretty much right from Jump Street. And there were a couple of great examples in that game of why I'd like to see the Phillies play the Reds and why the Dodgers are so dangerous, right? Both of those things. Let's start with the Reds part because this is going to be an important part of the equation. A lot of people saw the Dodgers last night win 10-5, and all of a sudden, they've forgotten 162 games of baseball. How can the Phillies beat this team? Look how offensively superpowered the Los Angeles Dodgers are. Shohei Ohtani goes yard twice. How will you ever beat this baseball team? Okay, slow down a second. The Cincinnati Reds are an 83-win team. That's how they made the postseason. 83 wins. The Phillies, if I'm not mistaken, won 96. The Phillies, if I'm not mistaken, won their division. The Phillies, if I'm not mistaken, won more games than the Los Angeles Dodgers in the regular season. Yeah. They're the better team over 162 games. It's why the Phillies are having an intrasquad scrimmage night, which we're going to talk about in a second. And the Reds and Dodgers are playing for their lives. So don't take what the Dodgers are doing to the Reds, or at least what they did to the Reds last night, as this indication of what they're going to do to the Phillies. This is not an even matchup. And it's why I want the Phillies to play the Reds. Not only do the Reds have that lesser record and lesser roster and lesser players. Terry Francona, Tito, he's been getting all this credit of like, ooh, he's a great postseason manager. And he is. The dude's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? But there's only so much he can do. He's not just going to, hey, bring him into the clubhouse and be like, guys, this is the secret. This is how we beat Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and the world champion from last year, Dodgers. Like, no, he's a great manager. But there's only so much he can do when the roster that he has is deficient compared to the roster he's playing against. And that's why I wanted the Reds for the Phillies. That's why I still do want the Reds for the Phillies. And they're starting pitching the Reds. Yeah, it's great. But the other thing that team doesn't really have is postseason experience. They don't have a lot of guys who have been here before, and the Dodgers do. So that's kind of where the Reds thing pops in. It's pretty simple to see why I wanted the Phillies to play the Reds and why you should too. But now let's talk a little bit about those Los Angeles Dodgers, because it got, even with a 10-5 victory, a little sketchy at points for the Dodgers in the middle to late innings of that baseball game. So Blake Snell goes out. He throws strong. He looked incredible. He looked good against the Phillies last month. No, this month. Earlier this month. It's October, September. See, that's what happens when the calendar changes. It is Red October, by the way. Happy Red October, officially. Now, I'm still calling it Reds October until the Dodgers eliminate the Reds, and then we'll move on to our turn. But, yes, it is October. When the Phillies played the Dodgers in September, Blake Snell looked awesome, right? But what happened with the Philadelphia Phillies in games in that series? Ohtani shoved. You get to the bullpen, next thing you know, you win that baseball game, right? It's just the same thing happened last night. The Dodgers went to the bullpen, and all of a sudden the Reds had life. And I'll tell you, if the Phillies can just get to the Dodgers bullpen, they are going to win this series if they play the Dodgers. And we'll dive deeper into that. But it's every game with that team. It's wild that a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers, with all the money invested in their team and all the pitching they had coming into the season, that when you look at the bullpen, you're like, wow, they can't get guys out at the playoff level. or really even at the major league level for the past month or so of the season. It's a major deficiency that the Phillies have fixed ahead of the trade deadline, or at the trade deadline, I should say, with the Joan Duran acquisition, with signing David Robertson, with bringing in Walker Buehler, former Dodger. That's the thing. If you can just work through the starters and be selective and be maybe comfortable going down a run or two early, that's the way that you have to beat the Dodgers. And I think the Phillies are going to be really darn good at that. Trey Turner sees a lot of pitches. Kyle Schwarber sees a lot of pitches. Bryce Harper sees a lot of pitches. Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh has gotten better at it. Harrison Bader. They've got a bunch of guys in their lineup that put together quality at bats. It might not be the series for Nick Castellanos. It might not be the series for I'm trying to think of other guys like a Weston Wilson or Otto Kemp. And Alec Bohm, maybe drop him down a little bit in the lineup because he likes to swing early. But if you build your lineup around the guys that are going to get you to the bullpen fastest by working pitch count, that seems to be, through one postseason game between the Dodgers and the Reds, the way to knock off LA. The Dodgers look good. Did you expect them not to? The Phillies are going to look good too. There's a reason why they won 96 games. But tonight, they've got a game that they can't win. Or maybe they are guaranteed to win. I guess that's what happens when you play against yourself. We're going to talk about the intra-squad scrimmage that the Phillies have going on tonight at Citizens Bank Park and some fan takeaway rules and also some thoughts on how they're handling it and like what can be gained from this. I don't want to overstate it, and you'll understand why when I make my case against it, but it is a really fun event and one that could help them when it comes to taking on the Dodgers or the Reds in the NLDS. We'll discuss that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But first, let me tell you about FanDuel because the NFL season's here. And FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Throw $5 down. And if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So Thursday night football, right? San Francisco and LA. You're seeing like Matt Stafford, and you're like, okay, well, Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. That's a good game, right? Brock Purdy out, Ricky Pearsall out. Like San Fran is missing pretty much everybody. So maybe look at the Rams and look at the money line. For a normal FanDuel bettor like me, that might only pay you out like $1 on $10. But because of this promo, if you're a new user, $5 gets you $300, and then you use that $300 to throw on whatever you want. That's maybe a little bit more risky for Major League Baseball postseason, for NFL this weekend. All of these things you can go ahead and bet on them. They got futures, parlays, props. They've got money line spread, all of the stuff that you normally look to bet on when you bet on sports. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. $5 could turn into $300 for you in a snap. So go ahead and check them out. The intra-squad scrimmage. Now, the Phillies have done this in the past. That's one of the most important points that I'm going to make in this segment. This is not new. This is not something the Phillies have just decided to start doing. So, whatever happens in the postseason, I don't want to hear someone say, see, they won against the Dodgers or the Reds or whoever because they did the intra-squad scrimmage. Or, see, they did the intra-squad scrimmage and they shouldn't have, and it was too much intensive work ahead of a series, and that's why they lost. They did this before. They just didn't open it up to fans. It's very cool that they are opening it up to fans because it tells me a couple of things. One, it tells me the Phillies care about their city. Getting folks in, $10 ticket, they can't normally afford to go to a playoff baseball game or see baseball this time of year. And normally when the regular season ends, your time watching the Phillies is over. That sucks. That's reality of postseason baseball. The tickets get more expensive. But the fact that the Phillies are doing this opens the door to more fans to get them in to see their team and support their team. And that's great. $10 going to charity too, like the proceeds going to charity, is a great thing. So I love that they're doing this. And I also love that it's a different approach than last year. They did the intra-squad scrimmage last year, but this year they're opening it up to fans. Now, is that just a nice thing they're doing for the fans? Yes. Is there also some strategy in it? I'd imagine the answer to that is yes. Maybe they want that environment. Now, what should you do, right? That's a big time question. But I just like that what the Phillies did last year didn't work as well as they'd liked it to. So they're tweaking it this year. That's what good organizations do. Something doesn't work, you don't just repeat it the same. You repeat it similarly and change one or two things here, and you see if it works, right? So I like that. But that's the real tricky part of this conversation because I don't have a good answer to it. Like, how do you cheer or boo if you're in the stadium? How much noise should you make if you're going to the intra-squad scrimmage tonight? Like, should you boo both sides so that they get used to what it's like to play on the road? Should you cheer both sides as loudly as you can to kind of build up the noise of Red October? Should you just kind of hang out and let them get their work in? I don't have a good answer for you. I really don't. And I haven't really heard too much from Phillies players or anything like that about what they're preferring people to do. So it'll be really, I don't think there's a bad way to go about it, right? That's the beautiful thing. Now, I don't think if you booed your team in an intra-squad scrimmage after they won the division in 96 games and have the second best record in baseball, that'd be kind of a weird look. So maybe there needs to be some explanation somehow of why you would do that. Maybe there'll be a point where they put up on the scoreboard, hey, we want you to act like the Phillies are the opposing team just to help us with that environment. I don't know. It'll be very intriguing to see how that all plays out. And I'm excited for the videos from the intra-squad scrimmage. Now, what can you expect on the actual field? What's the actual strategy? Well, it's going to be a 7-inning game. The Phillies have divided into teams. Ranger Suarez is the only guy that I've seen that is not going to play tonight because he got hit with that comebacker in the series finale against Minnesota. Apparently, he's just still a little sore. Not anything at all to be nervous about. I'll just tell you right now. He wanted to stay in that game against the Twins. He got smoked, so it's crazy that he was just fine, but he's just fine. So no reason to risk anything if a guy is a little bit sore because this is not a have to. This is a would like to get you work at this point. But Ranger's going to be fine. So he won't throw tonight, but you'd expect that everybody else does. There have been a couple of theories that I've seen floated out there. We had John Brazier, who's the director of Phillies Fun and Games, who gave me this hat if you're watching on YouTube. He brought us some Red October gear 2 days ago, or I guess yesterday. And today he was in studio with us talking about all the great stuff going down at the ballpark for Red October. The Phillies always do an awesome job with that. But he brought up an interesting point on DERAIL, saying, well, they've mentioned potentially trying to do a 5-out save with him at some point, or a multi-inning save, I should say. And what does that look like? Because you haven't really done it yet. Do they try and get him to throw multiple innings? You will see set up positions on the base pass. Maybe when a Ryan Kerkering comes in, you'll see a runner on second and third, right? It's not just going to be a all the rules count regular game. They're going to set up scenarios to be in tough spots for players, right? They're going to create adversity. They're going to create tough situations. They're also going to create typical matchups that you see. So let's say that Aaron Nola is starting for one team as a righty and Christopher Sanchez is starting for another team as a lefty. Who do you think Nick Castellanos is going to hit off of? Sanchez, the lefty. They're not going to all of a sudden switch up and have Castellanos face righties and vice versa if they don't have to, right? They're going to try and keep some semblance of what players will be asked to do. So it'll be a really unique experience to see how they're working through that. I mean, I'll just tell you, some of my favorite moments from playing college ball was intra-squad scrimmages, getting to face guys that you hang out with in practice every day that you see face other teams, getting to face certain scenarios that maybe you haven't in a long, long time in a game that your coaches dream up because they're like, hey, he hasn't seen this look. Let's see if he's ready for it. It's a great mental and physical exercise to get you geared up for anything that could possibly happen. It's super valuable, and it's super valuable to be able to watch as fans to see how the team looks. But the one thing that I want, we'll just end on this. The one thing that I want to make sure y'all know, do not take anything major out of an inter-squad scrimmage, all right? The team is just as good as they were before you watched them tonight, right? There's not going to be a major takeaway. They're not going to be worse because of it. They're not going to be better because of it. All right. They are who they are. So don't come out of this saying, well, I saw this guy walk 2 guys. He shouldn't pitch in October. I saw this guy strike out 2 times. He shouldn't be in the lineup in October. Just go and enjoy it. I had an intrasquad scrimmage in college one time. I'll just tell you this. I was never a Major League Baseball player, but I played semi-pro ball and played a pretty good level for a long time. I had an inter-squad scrimmage where I hit 3 of my own teammates back to back to back. And it wasn't like they were all righties or all lefties. It was like righty, lefty, righty. I hit 3 people in a row. Do you know how many people I hit in my collegiate career? 0, right? It's practice for a reason. Sometimes you're working on stuff. Now, I was not working on hitting my teammates, but I was working on working the ball inside, and I just wasn't very good at it at that point in my career. But like, that's just a fun little story to tell you. Don't overreact, okay? Please don't, because you could take things too far. And this team, they are what they are at this point. Your opinion of them for October baseball should not be changing. But it's a fun event, and we'll talk about it tomorrow and all the stuff that we learn about it. And we'll also see if we have an opponent for the NLDS tomorrow decided. Will the Dodgers win against the Reds tonight and lock everything up? And then we know, and then we could talk about scheduling and matchup and all of this stuff. We'll see. I'm still saying Reds October, baby. Let's hope that they can at least extend this series to 3 games. That's all for today's episode. I didn't bring this up during the episode, but make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're listening to us in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. Also available on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's free and easy. And when you do, it'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss anything that we put together here on Locked On Phillies, your home for daily Philadelphia Phillies content. We're also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.